Bless Radio is the Tuesday evening spiritual discussion program, and I'm Saad in southeast London, in Bromley. And joining me, as usual, is Gregory. Gregory, how are you?
Hello, I'm well.
Good. Here in London, it has been a bright, sunny day. Now the sun is setting now, or set. So, but it's been nice and warm. How's it been? Where have you been?
Well, just like London.
Okay, good. So, dear listeners, as I mentioned, the program is called the Spiritual Discussion Program, and the aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail Message by Abrushin. And we have a topic for discussion every week, a new topic. The topic for tonight is Seeking Clarity in a World of Confusion. Seeking Clarity in a World of Confusion. You are welcome to join us with any questions or comments. You can contact us on our UK number, which is 079 39 641-958. You can call, text or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 00447939641958. Again, you can call, text or use WhatsApp. I'm going to begin with, what is the Grail Message? The Grail Message in the Light of Truth by Abrushin is a spiritual knowledge of life. It offers an explanation of the world, a picture of creation on the basis of natural laws. Its lectures contain valuable basic elements as a help in life. For through the knowledge mediated, the reader is again brought closer to life and led back to God. The Grail Message deals with important fundamental questions of life by explaining in a clear and logical way the automatic working of the laws of nature, the whole weaving of creation, allowing every process to be recognized, and thereby the purpose of our whole life. It is directed at the individual and speaks to the innate experiences of the human being, their strengths and weaknesses. Thus, every reader has the opportunity to discover through their intuitive perception if what is stated is the truth. Combining with the matter-of-fact reasoning, a complete world picture arises, where there is no separation between the visible world and the great world beyond the five senses, nor any separation between scientific and religious striving for knowledge. I'd like to give you a couple of quotes from the author of the Grail Message, Abrushin. The hearer and reader of my lectures should always work within himself, keenly probing and building bridges from one lecture to another, as well as out into the great and small world happenings. Only then will he be able to understand the Grail Message and find that it gradually shapes itself into one complete whole, without leaving any gaps. Again and again, in all the happenings, the reader will come back to the basic features. He can explain everything without having to change even one single sentence. The word of the Grail Message lives, so that it permits only those people who really carry the honest desire in their souls to find abundantly. All else is automatically rejected by it. For the arrogant and those who seek superficially, the message remains the book with 7 seals. I'd like to give you one more quote from the author. I wish to fill the gaps which have so far always remained unanswered in the souls of men, and which never leave any serious thinker in peace if he earnestly seeks for the truth. So, dear listeners, just to remind you, the topic we're discussing tonight is seeking clarity in a world of confusion. Seeking clarity in a world of confusion. You are welcome to join us with any questions or comments. The number to contact us on our UK number, it is 079 39 641 958. You can call on, contact us on WhatsApp, call, text, and use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 39 641 958. Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. Gregory, as usual, I've looked at the topic tonight and looked on the dictionary, the key words. So the first word, well, it's seeking actually in the title, but I'm assuming that people know what that means and doesn't need much clarification on that. But the next word, could say the next key word, is clarity. So I looked that up in the dictionary, and I got this meaning there. This is the word clarity, the quality of being coherent and intelligible. And they give an example of that in a sentence. For the sake of clarity, each of these strategies is dealt with separately. So there's a further meaning, but I won't go into that just now, Gregory. So just to repeat that, the clarity, the quality of being coherent and intelligible. Is that a good definition? You're on mute, Gregory.
Well, thanks for that particular question. The definition that you gave, as usual, is only a part, or is correct in parts, not wholly. In the sense that you have that it's coherent and it's intelligible. Intelligible gives the impression of some intelligence. It's coherent gives the impression that it's not scattered here and there. You can bring it together. So that is part of it, but it doesn't give a very precise picture to understand what clarity is.
Okay, and I've got a second part in the dictionary, which I'll read out as well. It says, the quality of transparency or purity. And again, they give an example there. That is the crystal clarity of water. So again, I'll repeat that, another definition for clarity. That's the quality of transparency or purity. And the example they gave, the crystal clarity of water. Again, can I ask if you can say something on that?
Yes, it is getting nearer because it's talking of purity. And the impression one takes away from these things is that it is not clouded. That means there is the basic idea and there could be noise around it. Because there will be noise around it, it is therefore not clear. Whereas subsequently, when that noise is removed, you now have clarity.
Thank you again for your answer. as usual, in our programs, the more we delve into the words or into the topic, things sort of expand and, become clearer. Or, just expand, I would say, get deeper. So, now, the other key word there is, so just to repeat, the title tonight is Seeking Clarity in a World of Confusion. So, of course, the world we are talking can be the physical world that we are living in, or just the world that exists, you could say. So we won't define that right now, but we will just go on to the next part, which is confusion. And again, I looked that word up in the dictionary, and here it says, the word confusion meaning uncertainty about what is happening, intended or required. And again, they give an example. There seems to be some confusion about which system does what. And Gregory, again, there's a second part of the definition, but I won't go to that right now. So just to repeat that, Gregory, confusion, the meaning given here, uncertainty about what is happening, intended or required. Again, can I invite you, Gregory, to say something on that?
Well, one can see that what has just been said is quietly connected to clarity, or more like the opposite of it.
So yes, actually that's good in a way. We've got two opposites, or two words which are opposite, clarity and confusion. So let me continue with the second part of that definition, Gregory, about confusion. It is the state of being bewildered or unclear in one's mind about something. And the example they give, she looked about her in confusion. So again, Gregory, can I say, again, repeating one more time, the second part of this definition of confusion, the state of being bewildered or unclear in one's mind about something.
Well, you can already see that it confirms what we just said, the opposite of clarity.
Yes. So again, now to say the whole topic tonight, which is seeking clarity in a world of confusion. So some people say that's an assumption. Are we really in a world of confusion? So Greg, can I ask that? Are we living in a world of confusion?
The question should be, who is unclear? Who has not got clarity? That is the question one should be looking into. Because there are some, they have clarity about events. There are others who do not have clarity about events. What is referred to as a world of confusion, that only comes about when the personality has not yet achieved clarity. So the motion, the movement going on about within him or outside of him or her are filled with uncertainty. They have so many possibilities, and they cannot, one may say they are not coherent, as you had used earlier. So yes, there will be lack of clarity for the individual.
Thank you for that clarification. It was not meant to be a pun, but it looks like I made it a pun. So we are saying, Gregory, each person, it is an individual, and they may have clarity, or they may not have, or they may have confusion. So, and of course, we can have a group of people together in confusion or clarity as well. So, but I guess that is a better way to look at it. If you look at it as an individual, you can always look at yourself and say, yes, I'm clear or I'm not clear. Okay, so Gregory, our program is about spiritual discussion, and so obviously there are concepts about in life which people have, you could say, different views or clarity or confusion. And now, out there are many spiritual teachings, you can say, and there are some differences in them. And for example, people say they believe in life after death, or some beliefs, I would say all the beliefs say there is life after death, but what happens in that, how they explain it or describe it, there are some differences. For example, you could say one section says there is even reincarnation, and then another teaching either just doesn't mention that at all, if there is reincarnation. Another mentions that there's even nirvana, which is supposed to be after death, physical death, you end up in a world, it's like you're absorbed into another world where you lose your consciousness, it appears. You're absorbed by like a bigger, just another world where your soul, we might have to describe that as well first before we go there, Gregory, but there's this concept of nirvana where somebody is absorbed into another world, you could say. So, Gregory, my question is, when we have these different concepts, which are quite different in a way, you don't know if they're correct first, so there's a question on that, and then there's a question if, like you say, with clarity, if there's a coherency. Because one is saying, there's reincarnation, the other one is saying, oh no, you are in nirvana, you're like absorbed into this one world, in the beyond. So, my question on this, Gregory, is when there are these different concepts which seem inconsistent, how can one gain clarity?
Thanks for that particular question. One must stress very carefully that, as with every challenge, one must go back to the beginning and at the same time start with the facts. The facts, which facts were true yesterday and likely to be true today. So that calls for continuous examination in order to separate that which is chaff from that which is not chaff. When one stresses that which is factual, is where one should start from. These concepts, in the first instance, exist. These concepts exist in the imagination of those who hold on to these concepts. Therefore, they exist there. What they themselves have not examined further is, are these concepts factual in accordance with the laws of creation, with the laws of nature, through which they themselves came into existence? That is one. Secondly, when people talk about this concept and say, do they really exist? Is there reincarnation? That question itself, it's wrong. It is wrong in the sense that a scenario has not been described where reincarnation will exist. So he just said, does it exist? And therefore, you find that you have these terms which are being used because these terms mean so many things or different things to different people. Then, justifiably, there is confusion. There's no clarity. There's no clarity, very simply, because there is no framework, no domain, that means no scenario from which these concepts can be tested, whether they are factual or not. And therein lies the confusion, because they have ignored the scenarios, they have ignored the framework. What one can never deny is that there must be a scenario in which the concepts which are being discussed could exist. There must be a scenario in which the reality of these concepts or the factualness of this concept can be tested. So these are the things which first must be addressed. And when proofs are demanded, it must be stressed that proofs exist only within a framework and within a scenario. So with these ones as the basis, one can then examine and say, here we are. What is man? Unless you know what man is intuitively, then can we be discussing reincarnation and be discussing nirvana and things like that. What are his attributes? If one must judge externally, looking at the forms, or the earthly form, the earthly figure, and only the earthly figure is considered, then the concept and the reality and the factualness of reincarnation vanishes. It doesn't make any sense. If, however, on the other hand, the form, the human form that we see, is not what is referred to, but the inner personality, then the inner personality must possess features, qualities, which transcends the human form as we know it right now. Must possess qualities which are independent or which transcends the physical body. It is that many will use as a basis. And therefore, to grasp these concepts, to grasp these realities, to grasp these factualness, it is important, it is mandatory that you grasp something when they are of a like nature. It means you can only make use of something when they are to a large extent of a like nature, of a homogeneous nature. Homogeneous in solidity. No one can deny that air exists because they cannot see air, but they can perceive the effects of air on the physical body, on trees. No one can deny that they have thoughts, although none has seen thoughts. But the effect of thoughts is obvious to everyone personally. However, you cannot see the other person's thoughts. That doesn't mean that person has not got thoughts. And those thoughts have no impact on the personality. So these are the things that we need to start from. And starting from such basis, before long, we will come to know that the human personality also transcends these thoughts, and that the connection between the human personality and the physically animated form, that which animates the physical body, is the intuitive perception. And at the same time, the human personality exists, just as the human thoughts exist. That one is not, or one cannot use the physical hands to hold one's thoughts. One cannot use the inner man to hold one's thoughts. So these are the scenarios one has to consider. And if one now, through intuitive investigation, convinces oneself, not another person, that the inner man is different from the physical body, therefore the inner man must have existed before the physical body. The inner man that has been in existence before the physical body and only makes use of the physical body whilst here, when the physical body has been used and is no more viable, the inner man departs. Then the question of paradise, reincarnation becomes trivial, because just as just as the inner man has taken over the physical body and has made use of it whilst on earth, has taken possession of the physical body during pregnancy and at the so-called death, the physical body drops and the inner man moves further away. It is therefore possible for the inner man to come back to take over when the conditions are right. The growing fetus in the womb of a mother, in order to make use of that body which is being prepared until the time of delivery and then proceeds again. That then is reincarnation. So it becomes a trivial matter. It's not something which requires any philosophies, but becomes a matter of fact. Therefore, it is factual. And I know many will then ask, how can one prove that the inner man is there? That will be another discussion at another time.
Thank you, Gregory, for your answer and painting this picture. It shows, the question requires us, as you say, a framework for us to assess or understand something, and in a way it requires some prior just who we are as human beings. That conception has to be known as well. So it's really, we need to have a starting point. I'm going to, before I continue further, I just want to tell listeners, you're listening to Blessed Radio. It's the Tuesday evening spiritual discussion program. The aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail Message by Abdrushi. If you are interested in knowing more about the Grail Message or want to get a copy of the Grail Message for yourself, you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that. www.grail, Grail, message, MESSAGE.com. And the topic we're discussing tonight is seeking clarity in a world of confusion. Seeking clarity in a world of confusion. You are welcome to join us with any questions or comments. You can contact us on our UK number, which is 079 39 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 39 641 958. Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And we are broadcasting on Bless Radio 1, the number 1.com. Also, you can listen to us on YouTube. Go to youtube.com, type in the search box, Bless Radio 1, again the number 1, space, live stream. And you can also listen to the recording of this show the next day. Or again, go to youtube.com and type in the search box, Bless Radio 1, again the number 1, space, Grail Message. And the topic of the show tonight is seeking clarity in a world of confusion. And of course, you can listen to our previous shows as well. And thirdly, you can listen to us on this website, which is zeno.fm/Bless Radio 1, the number 1. So Zeno is ZENO.fm/Bless Radio 1, the number 1. Gregory, following on the question, my first question, in fact, which is about how can we have clarification on sort of differing concept of there's life after death, reincarnation, and nirvana. You were talking about using a framework, and immediately in my mind came and looking at things factually, looking at facts. So what came into my mind immediately was science, because science is based on facts. And but I was thinking, well, you could say Science doesn't even examine this type of concepts, which are the spiritual concepts of life after death and reincarnation. I mean, they do investigate a little, but somehow it seems maybe not in that field. So, so what I want to ask you, Gregory, first just to check, can science be used to explain spiritual concepts? Let me ask that first. Yes, let me ask that first.
That is a very good question. And one will answer a definite yes and a definite no. Again, that one breeds confusion.
Agreed.
When you ask, can science be used? The question then comes, what are the tools of science? The tools of science are basically tied to the five senses which the human body possesses, and also a refinement of these five senses. Therefore, anything which goes beyond the sensitivities of these tools which science uses, science is unable to account for. Therefore, what science uses is only partial, it's only one-sided. So what is one-sided is not complete. Whereas, to examine that you just mentioned, there is a further requirement which is beyond the capabilities of science. And that requirement is that of one's intuition. On the one hand, science relies on intellectual capabilities. On the other hand, that which needs to be investigated relies on the intuition. Therefore, science can already verify that which exists. Anything which goes beyond the capabilities of science, in all naturalness, it cannot investigate because it lacks that intrinsic capabilities as long as it relies only on the intellect.
Thank you for your answer, Gregory. It certainly, I think, helps to realize again that you could say we must use all our abilities to comprehend life, not approach in a one-sided way. Let's say scientific way, as if that explains everything. It explains some things, but it's still limited. So, and then you've mentioned the intuition there, which many people have heard of, I would say, but probably we are not so clear about, Gregory. They say, listen to your heart. Let's say we use our heart and we use our I don't know what word the other word is. Is it intellect? Your head. Sorry, head. Listen to your head, or listen to your heart. And they seem to be two contradictory things, because sometimes they say, you could say matters of love is your heart you listen, but when it's something let's say, earthly matter or worldly matter, maybe you need to listen to your head more. So, sorry to come up with another direction. Are we meant to use Gregory in some matters, listen to our heart, or I'm now associating the word heart with intuition, you can say, if that's okay, and using the intellect, I'm using the word head to refer to the word intellect, is the other way. So some things, Gregory, we understand with the intellect, and some things with the, you could say, with the intuition, which is, you can call it the heart. So my question on that, Gregory, are there some matters we are supposed to use our head, and other matters we are supposed to use our heart?
Good question. I will pose a counter question. Which comes first? Is it the heart or the head? Is it the intuition or the intellect?
I would say it's not, you can't really say. I mean, it's like they're together, so I'm not quite sure if you can tell which came first.
Well, behind, as one can already perceive, there is the physical activity, there are the deeds which are perceptible to the physical senses. However, that which is the motive, the driving force, is not seen. The driving force must have come first before the physical deed is perceptible. Therefore, the motive, which motive must have arisen from deep within one's intuition, came first. One can give a very simple example. No one has ever seen energy. But energy affects all motion. Energy, which is what is described when things are talked about intellectually. On the non-intellectual level is the spirit. So the connection is that energy is spirit. So the spirit comes first. For it is what the intuition, which is the language of the spirit, that is the first one that provides the pressure, which pressure causes all the deeds, all the intellectual thinking. So it is the heart, in quotes. I'm only saying heart in quotes because when the heart is mentioned, one is referring to one's intuition as compared to the head, which is one's intellect. So if one needs to get a complete picture, which picture does not create any confusion, then there's the need to consider the deeds and what lies behind the deeds. Actually, that is what those who do investigation, whether it is in the military or in the police force, they look at the deeds, which is perceptible, they do all sort of measurement, and then they ask for the motives in order for them to have a well-balanced picture. That is how it is.
Thank you. Thank you for your answer, and again, building this picture about how the head and the heart, we're using the word head for intellect and the heart for intuition. So we can see, Gregory, everything has a role to play, and really what matters is the order, what came first, as you put it, what is there first. And what is there first obviously is the driver of the situation. Now, Gregory, there's no two people who are the same, Gregory. They think differently. No two people think the same. They've got different backgrounds, and so on, and so on. So, what about our, you could say, brought up? Does that play a role in our assessment of how we live? And of course it does play a role, but what I mean is that are we meant to rely on what our parents or our society or people that we are with use that in a way to assess a situation, because obviously, Gregory, you can only go on what you know, isn't it? You can only make a decision in your life about what you know. Yes, you can make a decision, you can guess something, of course you can, but you normally make a decision based on what you know. And that could include your experiences, how you've been brought up. So, my question is, Gregory, yes, should we be relying on what we have been taught in life, that we've learned over this life? What I mean by that, Gregory, is from others, learning from others, and because of course we have our own experience and we can learn from our own experience, but should we rely on what we have learned or been taught from others?
What many have learned in quotes from others are only experiences which others or impressions which others have shared. All these act as challenges which the personality must take in to evaluate and to see how appropriate it might be for them in moving forward. For the experiences which one must have gathered in one scenario, when that person moves to another scenario, those experiences may be completely useless. A very simple example, the experiences you may have gathered from your village where you worked in a farm and subsequently in transition to another place where you now have to work in a city or in a factory, the experiences of the farm is different from the experiences of the factory. So you're not going to just carry over. These experiences which have been shared with you, which you yourself had to gather along the line, is only a preparation to jolt you for deeper reflection in, quote, preparation for future challenges. These challenges you yourself are not quite sure of what they will be. However, in reviewing that which you had experienced or what has been shared with you, the spirit That means if those impressions you have gathered are passed on to the spirit through one's intuition, these experiences helps it to mature such that should one come across such experiences in the future, then is able to compare and to ensure this time it does not fail in case it has failed in the past. A simple example, in one earth life, you are able to gather so much experiences. If those experiences did not just stay within the intellect, but those experiences have touched the spirit and has brought it joy or sorrow, the spirit hold on to these experiences, learns from them. If they are of virtues, it holds on to them. If they are of virtues which have been distorted and have become vices, the spirit also learns from them. When it's permitted to incarnate in another earth life, it uses these same lessons, these same experiences to further its path, such that should such similar scenarios occur as in the past earth life, is able very quickly to make a decision. Whereas, if those experiences did not sink into the spirit, now in a new earth life, it will have to learn. It will have to sink into such experiences and learn from them, such that so much time will now be taken. Whereas, had it allowed those experiences to influence it in a reciprocal manner, is able to mature. Because by then, is able to differentiate that which is of benefit and that which is not of benefit.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that picture again, Gregory. Again, this topic is just, you could say, getting deeper and wider and more interesting as we go. Now, Gregory, I know we are not supposed to talk about politics on our show, but we can't ignore the news in the world. And as you know, there's this. Well, I only use this as an example, Gregory. The war in Ukraine. Then, basically, you could say there's a physical war in terms of fighting, but then there's also information war with you could say the news, or different sides giving their own version of the news. You can say what is happening. And Gregory, I'm just using, like I said, that as an example. So when we listen, even in general, some other people who are leaders, let's say, are making speeches about whatever policy they're planning, you could say. And you as one who's observing or who is going to, as a citizen of that country, will get the impact of those decisions that the leaders are making, these political leaders are making. You're going to experience that, and then you're wondering, let's say, does the well, first, Gregory, when people speak, can you really know what they mean by these words? Because they say, yeah, talk is cheap. People can just say words, and then, sometimes you see, oh, there's no action from these words. And so how can we know, Gregory, when somebody is saying something, leaders are saying something, that first that these words are meaningful in any way, or it's just something they're just saying almost to, how can I say, inspire? It's just, I'm sorry, I'm not saying it in a clear way, but what I'm basically trying to say is, are these just sweet words sometimes people are speaking, or are they actually meaningful things that, can benefit us? Let me say this way. How can we know the difference?
At the beginning, we stressed that there are the concepts, which concepts exist even in our imagination, and then there are the facts. You mentions the scenario of war. War and peace must be considered. There is many a time some groups win the war, but they lose the peace. In that scenario, there has been no end to the war. In another scenario, there is to be able to win a war and also to be able to win the peace. To fight a war, you require what some may refer to as stormtroopers. You do not require patience for the type of war you are referring to, in which leaders pass comments. That is a war of violence. Whereas that war, which leads to lasting peace, is not a war of violence. It's a war that requires patience. It's a war that requires understanding. It's a war that requires absolute dedication. It's a war that requires earnest, good volition for one's neighbor. That war, what one is referring to, automatically becomes peace if those people involved in that type of activity, they care for one another. That vigorous activity will also be a form of competition. A simple example of such wars as one is referring to, in which violence is not involved, is the case of simple football. Is the case of, one may say, athletics. These are fierce competition. These are activities where there is a lot of competition. But there is no violence, there is no destruction. Whereas that you are referring to, that is filled with violence. And because it is filled with violence, destruction of human lives, of property, of so many things, it is tied to the vices of the personalities. It is tied to pride. It is tied to greed. It is tied to envy. It is tied to lust. In that particular case, you now have that those people who initiated this particular scenario, they must have planned over time. For now, that which was hidden has now revealed itself. And by their activities, many reveal their inner way of doing things. It becomes very apparent. And in accordance with the laws of creation, through which the human personalities came into existence, they themselves have sown. It's as if they have sown the wind. Before long, they who have sown the wind will have to reap the whirlwind.
Thank you so much, Gregory, for your answer there and explanation. Dear listeners, you're listening to Bless Radio. It's the Tuesday evening spiritual discussion program from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. UK time. The aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail message by Aprushi. And if you are interested in knowing more about the Grail message or want to get a copy of the Grail message for yourself, you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that. www.grail, G-R-A-I-L, message, MESSAGE.com. And tonight we're discussing the topic seeking clarity in a world of confusion. Seeking clarity in a world of confusion. You can join in the discussions with any questions or comments by contacting us on our UK number, which is 079 39 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 39 641 958. Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. We're broadcasting on Bless Radio 1. That's the number 1.com. Also, you can listen to us on YouTube. Go to youtube.com and type in the search box Bless Radio 1, the number 1, space, live stream. That's for the live show. You can then listen to the recording of this show the next day. Go again to youtube.com and type in the search box Bless Radio 1, the number 1 again, space, Grail message, and then the topic of the show, which tonight is seeking clarity in a world of confusion. You can also listen to our previous shows on YouTube. And thirdly, we're also broadcasting on Zeno.fm/Bless Radio 1. Again, the number 1. That's Zeno is Zeno.fm/Bless Radio 1. The number 1. Now, Gregory, I said the topic tonight is seeking clarity in a world of confusion. You know, we've talked about clarity, we've talked about confusion, and then this word seeking. And you've talked about facts, Gregory, looking at facts. So, what should be our attitude, Gregory, when we are seeking clarity? How should we be seeking, Gregory? That's what I'd like to ask when we are seeking clarity.
Thanks for that particular question. How should we be? Is it how should we be seeking, or how should we seek clarity?
Yes, how should we seek clarity? Maybe that's probably the better way, yes.
Now, to seek means only to make immense efforts through using all the tools that are available to man, or using the tools which nature has endowed you with to investigate. Now, since we are seeking for clarity, first, it must be personal clarity. To do that, that which nature has endowed us with is first the intellect and also the personal intuition. The intellect, which basically is used for investigation about the earthly things, has behind it, or there should be behind it, the motive. What this can be reframed. On the one hand, that which is perceptible through the five senses gives us a form, gives us to some extent what you refer to as a concept. That which is perceptible to the senses, the five senses, one can only use that one as cognitive objects or as tokens. What lies behind it, which is the motive, takes us from one point to another point in our seeking. Therefore, one is talking about from that which is factual, that which we have seen, that which we have been able to identify with our five senses. In evaluating it, we come to a better recognition. So our investigation should move on from the point of cognition to another point of recognition, in which we stand at a higher point Just like a bird that is flying, as it flies higher, is now able to link up the different points. It's now able to form a picture. It's quite remarkable because at the beginning, when you were reading, in talking about the Grail message, you talked about a picture of creation on the basis of natural laws. That word picture of creation gives you like a graph, or to be very blunt, gives you like a map. Only when you are able to join the dots from one point to the other in this array of many points, which may seem to be confusing because there are so many of them, only then are you able to find a path to move you from one point of cognition based on what is available right there to move to another point of recognition. So it's as if one now has a map. And in this particular case, the case of the Grail message, it provides a picture of creation, but not a static picture, a dynamic picture. It is that dynamic picture in traversing from one maturity to the other. That is life itself that has been talked about again and again. To be able to review all that one has experienced and make sense of it so as to avoid many a confusion.
Thank you for this answer and picture you've given, Gregory. What it made me think about, when there are things that you don't know, or let's say in talking about spiritual teachings, where people have certain, you could say, beliefs, and because that's what you're taught, or you come to know. And I'm wondering, Gregory, we're talking about seeking clarity. So are we meant to, when we are given these teachings and beliefs, are we meant to, let's say thousands of people or millions of people follow these beliefs, and they adopt them almost like a habit? Are we meant to investigate them, based on what we are told there, or just accept them because we can't really verify them, so I'm talking about things, Gregory, let's say in things when they talk about heaven. Now, who can say that he has been in heaven and knows what is there? That's what we are being told, or so even they are told, let's say they are angels. Now, hardly anybody can claim that they have seen an angel. So are we meant to accept them, these beliefs, if I can say that way, just at face value, or are we meant to investigate and sort of verify them?
Although one had already alluded to this and provided an answer, it's nice to, one has to repeat it. In essence, the question is that, do angels exist? Does heaven exist? And in our earlier discussion, one had dismissed such, that such should be reframed. What is the scenario? And what is the framework? One cannot go to where you have the warring parties like you yourself mentioned, where there is destruction of lives and property, and call that heaven. On the contrary, the possibility is to call such a scenario hell, where anything goes. A scenario where envy, greed, wickedness, lustfulness, slothfulness, gluttony, pride, that scenario, what is what one may call hell. For there is warfare, which warfare is not a competition, but a destruction of the other person. In the same sense, one can flip it around. The scenario where one supports the other. Here on earth, one can perceive with the five senses that condition, that scenario, where all for one and one for all. So physically, yes. When it then comes to the non-physical, the language which we are to use is that of one's intuition. And therefore, there is the need to investigate through one's intuition whether what one had been, in quotes, taught is correct or is in accordance with one's intuitive sensing or not. That is the only way available. For whatever is not examined intuitively can never become an experience within the spirit. And in a step-by-step fashion, gradually, one will then arrive, or the way creation is, as the human personality makes the effort intuitively to examine, it is led across or led through certain experiences which be the returns of its seeking. Therefore, it is very well said, seek diligently, and you will find that experience which will provide you with personal conviction, just as you are able to think within yourself. No one, you don't need to convince anyone that you yourself are able to think, because you know you have a thoughts, just like they also have their thoughts. And therefore, because you yourself are seeking diligently, experiences will come your way, or you gradually be led to a certain experiences which will then open up, such that you start from a position of cognition, having had the object of cognition. That means you yourself have started from somewhere, filled with good volition, a firm good volition. Then one is gradually led across the path where, step by step, that which one needs to experience, one will experience it which will now bring a conclusion, gladness and happiness to the seeker. That is the way. Otherwise, if one does not seek intuitively and diligently, then that necessary experience that the person needs to form conviction will be lacking.
Thank you for this answer, Gregory. I'm wondering, I know you've emphasized about the need for personal seeking and investigation. And I'm wondering, and of course we are aware there are spiritual teachings, and let's call them wise people, writers that people come across, in each culture. So I'm wondering, Gregory, are we meant to only work with our own individual sort of research or work, or are we also meant to listen to these wise people that are famous, you can say, in history? They've written writings, and so are we, or even I mentioned earlier religions, but let me focus at the moment on these so-called, let's say, wise people's work. Are we meant to learn from them as well, or is it meant to be everybody has to find their own way by themselves?
You mentioned the words or the expression wise. On what basis have we classified or categorized these people as wise?
Well, I would say they have became famous through their writings, let's say, over time, and so they're considered. Let's say, for example, Einstein. I know that's a scientific one, I know, and maybe there's others like Shakespeare. They make some famous. I know he was writing plays, but there might be some more concepts they would be painting, or he was painting, let's say. So I'm just wondering what I'm trying to say, Gregory. That's what I mean by wise. People who know better than you, let's say the ordinary man, if I can say that, ordinary person. So when you say who categorizes the wise, I would say they have shown their wisdom because they became respected in their field.
When you examine what you have just put forward, you find it is very faulty. It is faulty because they have spoken of something, they have written of something, and people, to some extent, might have done some investigation, and to some extent found it to be correct, and therefore they have been wise. Wisdom has nothing to do with what the intellect has put forward as being stable. Wisdom has everything to do with what the intuition continues to provide in the maturity of the human personality. Wisdom has everything to do with the way nature has been arranged, the way creation has been arranged, which creation is what gave birth to the human spirit as a spirit germ. The volition behind all that one refers to as nature the volition behind all that one refers to as creation, that volition itself is wisdom. That volition which is expressed as the laws of creation, as the laws of nature, which laws themselves never change. These laws are the manifestation of the truth itself. Therein lies wisdom. There is more to it that one may even mention. Whereas the writings that man has made are only products of their minimal recognition, or are only products of their earthly or their intellectual recognition, which are of a low level, that which is beyond the earthly, which is beyond matter, they are oblivious of. Therefore, one may not classify them or categorize them as wise ones. A very simple example, which one would like to share. Around Christmas, you hear of the three wise kings. Which three wise kings were carefully guided to the birthplace of Christ. And what did they do? They brought earthly gifts. Through the earthly gifts, gave it to the parents, packed their things, and left. Meanwhile, if they were wise, they would have known that the environment, in that environment was Herod, the king. Like it's been reported, was slaughtering the firstborn. These three wise kings, in quotes, were well guided. However, their focus was based on earthly material things, not the protection of the child, whom they themselves were to ensure through the guidance, which guidance had been granted to them in the wisdom of him who granted them that assignment. Yes, we hear three wise men instead of to hear of the three foolish men. So what you refer to as earthly wiseness, it is not wiseness. Wisdom only comes when one combines that which is earthly, which is perceptible to the senses, and also what lies behind the volition, the motive. And in combining this, being able to be benevolent to those people, those creatures in the environment where they coexist with others in order to further that environment. Therein lies wisdom.
Thank you again, Gregory, for your answer and explanation. It shows how we really must dig deeper to find answers and to get clarity, rather than just, you could say, depend on others' so-called wisdom. I've got more question on that. So, but before I continue, I just want to let the listeners know you're listening to Bless Radio. This is the Tuesday evening spiritual discussion program from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. UK time. The aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail Message by Abdrusheen. If you are interested in knowing more about the Grail Message or want to get a copy of the Grail Message, you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that. Grail, www.grail, that's Grail, message, message.com. And the topic we're discussing tonight is seeking clarity in a world of confusion. Seeking clarity in a world of confusion. You're welcome to join us with any questions or comments by contacting us on our UK number, which is 079 39 641 958. You can call, text or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 39 641 958. Again, you can call, text or use WhatsApp. And we're broadcasting on blessradio1.com. I'll spell that's Bless Radio, the number 1, blessradio1.com. Also, we're broadcasting on YouTube. Go to youtube.com and type in the search box Bless Radio 1, again the number 1, space, live stream. Also, you can listen to this show, the recording of this show, the next day. Again on YouTube, go to youtube.com and type in the search box Bless Radio 1, the number 1, space, Grail Message, and space the topic of the show, which tonight is seeking clarity in the world of confusion. You can also listen to our previous shows, again on YouTube. And we're also broadcasting on Zeno.fm/Bless Radio 1. Zeno is ZENO.fm/Bless Radio 1, the number 1 again. Gregory, we just talked about wisdom, and you said look at the laws of nature and the talents given to us by nature. And you mentioned about the intellect and the intuition as gifts, you could say, for us human beings. So it looks like we're supposed to learn from nature. But somehow this is not what we are taught in school, you could say. I mean, we're taught in a, let's say, yes, we are talking about nature in terms of science, you know, how animals live, how we live, and in this type of way, but not in a way, you could say, I mean, we don't hear about the laws of nature there, Gregory. I mean, it is mentioned a little bit, you could say, but it's not really taught, you can say. And even the intuition, which we are talking about today as a gift from nature, and the intellect, I would say, well, intellect maybe is, we can talk about in terms of intelligence, you know, that we have this intelligence, and we try, those who are intelligent are supposed to be, let's say, better able to let's say, understand things in life and deal with things in life, but we don't get to know specifically on the laws of nature and the intuition much, Gregory. Is that something that can be taught, Gregory, about the laws of nature and this intuition? That, as I say, it's not really a focus in education. So, yeah, is that something we can learn about?
Of course, we can learn about it. However, one shouldn't expect things to be, in quotes, taught. When, in quotes, the teacher as such is oblivious of that which needs to be taught. So you can only teach someone that which you have come to know. That which you haven't yet known, you cannot be teaching it. However, what the intellect has dealt with has always been the collation of the after effects of real knowledge. Those collation of the after effects or of the small changes they have found within the interaction in nature has been referred to as science. That there are some who are adept in science because they have focused on it in their investigation is commendable. Just like some others who focus on music are able to play wonderful music. Music itself is natural. People have put this together. They did not study science. So those who do music, one cannot come around and say, well, the laws of science, of heaviness, of all sorts of things should be applied into the arts, into literature, into music. These are different disciplines. And yet, some of the disciplines are taught, some are not taught because you can only teach someone that which you know or that which you are conversant with. Only those who know how to use their intuition, who are able to perceive of the picture without words, which strikes the personality and is able to interpret those pictures, only that personality can then mediate how the personality should adjust itself in its inner attitude such that it's able to receive what that picture which has been passed on to it is.
Thank you again, Gregory, for that. Again, you're sort of pointing to that, this is a discovery. Life is a discovery, and you could say it is a mission of every human being, or I use the word mission, in the nature of the human being to investigate and to learn. It's just somehow inside us to do that. It's not that you can be taught everything. So it's like you have to find your talents and then develop them You're not taught what is your talent beforehand. Oh, this is my talent. You just have to discover it as you go, and then you work on that. So thank you for that. Now, we're told about the Creator or God, in, let's say, most teachings, and is that the ultimate goal, Gregory, to discover the God or the Creator? Is that part of our task of our life, to find Him? And let me just say that for now, yes.
Absolutely not. The purpose of man in experiencing is to ensure those skills, those talents which have been embedded in it, come to fruition in accordance with the will of its creator. Whether it's able to, when it has come to when it has come to full maturity, whether it's able to move from one step to the other, to understand the structure, the wisdom that lies behind nature, that lies behind creation, is a different thing altogether. So the first step is to come to self-consciousness. Once it has attained to self-consciousness, its inner attitude will change. Then it is prepared to start further investigation in order to mature, to understand what creation is all about.
Thank you. So you could say take one step at a time, and not jump ahead in discovering. You could say first discovery is, yes, what are my talents? What am I, here to do? And then later, you could say when you've developed such talents, you can even say, okay, the recognition of yourself, self-consciousness, you can say. So it's like, just like a development, really, in our abilities. So let me just try to. Yes, so Gregory, let me come from another angle now, Gregory. Nobody can really claim they know what is their future, right? We live and we develop our ability, and then, whatever comes next, we deal with it as it comes. So can one, and some people, let's say, have, you could say, a happy life, and in, I don't know, you could say it's through their circumstances or what, and others who, let's say, suffer, and as I say, you don't actually know what is your future, which way life will take you, but and then some people worry, agree, about the future, because they, so I'm trying to come up with a question in this regard to this. So let me give an example to make it a bit more focused. So, for example, we have this war in Ukraine right now, and the Ukrainians in Ukraine are in danger, those who are civilians, let's say, living in the cities, and they're in danger of getting bombed and killed or injured, and then but they don't know what's next. So my question is, Gregory, when your situation is uncertain like that, can you have some confidence in your future safety of where you stand, or just do you have to deal with it as and when, as this actual situation is right now? Because as I say, you don't really know if a bomb's going to hit that where you are, or maybe it will not be you, it will be your neighbor who gets hit. So how can one have, in this situation, confidence in that you can have some safety, let's say?
The war in Ukraine, like you already mentioned, is a challenge for all those who are impacted, whether they are there or not. Like all challenges, it forces or it jolts the human personality to wake up, to improve its inner attitude, to perceive more, and to be able to articulate and make progress, such that it will come to greater spiritual maturity. Whatever the challenge is, as long as one has the right attitude internally, then it's able, through the returns of that right attitude, follow a path. That path here on earth or hereafter. So whatever it is, as long as man adopts the right inner attitude, then is able to make progress and mature spiritually. However, those who initiate with their attitude, with their greedy attitude, with their attitude filled with pride, with their attitude filled with envy, that challenge, which they are unable to deal with, hence unleashing that which is ignoble on others, they themselves, here or hereafter, will have to give account for were they matured enough or strong enough, then they would have dealt with that challenge and know that it is live and let live. So whatever it is, be they the Ukrainians who now have to suffer the anguish of soul in their response and the right attitude, they are now able to mature and learn to be more vigilant, to be more on the alert. For they can now understand that being a neighbor and living with others who have wrong attitudes, they themselves are supposed to awaken very quickly and be able to adjust and deal with that. Only along that line are they able to make progress spiritually.
Thank you again for this explanation and sort of understanding that about attitude. So whatever happens, we are prepared, or we have an attitude where we are prepared to deal with this, whatever comes to us. And as you mentioned, the Ukrainians could be suffering, who are in Ukraine, but there's also outside. They're also suffering because they're feeling the pain of the people who are directly in the firing line, you can say. So, in a way, the whole world.
Not only the Ukrainians.
Yes.
Or those who are. There are many persons who, very far away,
yes,
is able, through that inner attitude, to have compassion. That means they put themselves in this particular scenario and ask, what could I have done? And in that particular scenario, had to suffer deep within them, having sleepless nights, yet they are not there. They who have done that are also able to mature and also awaken in order to be prepared to defend themselves. First, defend themselves in their thoughts.
Thank you for that, Gregory. That just reminds me, it's not only Ukrainians, the people around, everybody basically in the world also can be experiencing by, having compassion. And so now the world is reacting in different ways in terms of countries, with what is the situations happening in Ukraine. And what I want to ask is, Gregory, you mentioned the word compassion there. You could say kindness as well. But somehow, Gregory, decisions are made in each country according to their interests or their situation. Let's just make a quick scenario. Let's say people are putting sanctions on Russia right now, thinking that this is going to have an impact. And then some countries saying, oh, if we do the same section as some other countries, we will lose, we'll suffer quite badly ourselves. We can't do that. So obviously every country has a different situation. And so I'm wondering, Gregory, when these decisions are being made and people have, they thought they could be, when they were trading with some country, they thought, oh, it's based on trust and a good relationship, but suddenly the relationship is all turned upside down, and they're thinking, oh, but I can't cut, all my trading with, let's say, with my, I don't want to use the word enemy, but somehow the relationship soured so much that you think maybe I shouldn't be working with these people anymore. So my question is, Gregory, is everybody's how the decision they make based on their individual situation, or can it be a universal way of acting in these matters? Like a world uniting to act in one way, or should it be each country by themselves, acting as themselves?
So-called countries are made up of individuals. So it is the individuals who make up the body of a country that count. Each one according to how he or she stands. Each personality, through continuous experiencing, through putting themselves in the shoes of another who are undergoing terrible suffering, can come to build up or to develop or allow the virtues to arise within them, and that is the virtue of compassion. In that case, such will be that through their personal striving, through their intuitive reflections, they now have built a strong conviction within themselves. And when the returns then come, the returns of what had been initiated will strike each personality in accordance with his or her conviction. So it will not be, oh, I was relying on my country or I was relying on the other country. For what has happened to one person there who had been clobbered, who had been punished, and you thinking, oh, I'm far away from it, because you haven't built that ethereal environment, which ethereal environment that will surround you is based on your personal strength, your personal conviction or weaknesses. When a similar scenario occurs, you may be on the receiving end. And because you haven't prepared for it, then the impact on you could be devastating. So each personality must strive for conviction.
Thank you for so much for that, Answer, Gregory. Listeners, we come to the end of our show. So I'm just going to end with my regular reading from the Grill message. And it's titled, For Your Guidance. The bandage falls, and belief becomes conviction. Liberation and redemption lie only in conviction. I'm addressing earnest seekers only. They must be able and willing to examine this matter objectively. Religious fanatics and irresponsible enthusiasts may hold aloof, for they are detrimental to the truth. As for the malevolent and prejudiced, they shall find their sentence in the very words. The message will strike only those who still carry within them the spark of truth and the yearning to be true human beings. To all such it will become the shining light and star. It will lead them unswervingly out of all the chaos of the present-day confusion. The following word does not bring any religion. It is intended as the torch to help all serious listeners or readers find the right path, which leads them to the longed-for height. Only he who bestirs himself can advance spiritually. The fool who uses extraneous aids for this, in the form of ready-made opinions of others, only walks his path as if on crutches, while ignoring his own healthy limbs. But the moment he boldly uses all the abilities which lie dormant within him, awaiting his call, he is employing the talent entrusted to him in accordance with his Creator's will, and will easily overcome all obstacles that seek to divert him. Therefore awake. Genuine faith lies only in conviction, and conviction comes solely through an inflexible weighing and examining. See that you are truly alive in the wonderful creation of your God. Apprushin. Gregory, is there anything you want to say to the listeners to say goodbye?
Wishing them a beautiful week.
Thank you. Dear listeners, hope you enjoyed the show tonight. We were talking about seeking clarity in a world of confusion. That is in our own world, in our own as an individual. rather than the world in general. So hope you enjoyed the show. We'll be back as usual next Tuesday, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. with another topic. I wish you a great week. God bless. Good night.